Welcome to Japanese Milk Bread Mastery. I'm Henry Hunter, founder of Baking Great Bread at Home and the Crust Crumb Academy. I've spent years teaching home bakers the art and science of baking bread. This week, we're tackling one of the softest, most satisfying breads you'll ever pull out of your oven. If you baked with us last week, you're already halfway there. If you're brand new, don't worry, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. This is the one I've been looking forward to. We're going deep on Shokupan, the Japanese milk bread. The history behind it is fascinating, the science is real, and by Saturday, you're going to make it yourself. Beyond white bread. This isn't just another white bread recipe. We're covering the cultural story of how bread went from a foreign curiosity in Japan to something people line up for at specialty bakeries in Tokyo. We're breaking down the science of why this bread stays soft for days. We're learning precision shaping techniques for enriched dough. And it all leads to Saturday's live bake-along, where we make it together. What is Shokupan? So what is Shokupan? The name breaks down simply. Shoku means eating or food. Pan means bread. And that word actually came from the Portuguese pão, which tells you something about how bread got to Japan in the first place. Put them together and you get the daily bread, the everyday bread. The Japanese describe the texture as fuwa, which means fluffy like a cloud. And that's not marketing, that's accuracy. When you tear this bread apart, it stretches in pillowy sheets, almost like cotton candy before it separates. It sits right between sandwich bread and brioche, softer than what you'd get at the grocery store, but lighter and less rich than a true brioche. It's its own thing entirely. Two styles, one dough. There are two classic styles of shokupan, and they both use the same dough. Yamagata, or mountain style, is baked in an open-top pan. You get those beautiful domed peaks on top where each piece of dough rose up during baking. That's what we're making on Saturday. Then there's kakugata, or square style. That one's baked in a Pullman pan with the lid on. The lid traps the steam, gives you perfectly flat sides and top, and creates an even softer, more uniform crumb. That's what you'd find in Japanese convenience stores and bakeries. Same dough, two different results. Pretty cool, right? The arrival of pan. Here's where the story gets interesting. Bread isn't traditional Japanese food. Rice has been the staple grain for thousands of years. So how did bread get there? 1543. Portuguese and Dutch traders arrive at the port of Nagasaki. They brought guns, Christianity, and bread. The Japanese word for bread, pan, comes directly from the Portuguese. But bread didn't catch on. Japan was a rice culture, and for the next few centuries, bread was just a foreign curiosity that nobody was really eating. Then, during the Edo period, Japan essentially closed its doors to the outside world. Limited trade continued through Nagasaki, but Western food culture didn't penetrate daily life at all. That changed in 1868 with the Meiji era. Japan reopened, modernized rapidly, and the Navy actually adopted bread to fight vitamin deficiencies in sailors. But most Japanese homes didn't even have ovens. Bread was still uncommon for everyday people. Adaptation. Born of necessity. Then World War II changed everything. After the war, Japan faced severe rice shortages. The United States had wheat, lots of it. American Food Relief shipped massive quantities of wheat flour and powdered milk to Japan throughout the late 1940s and 50s. The government put bread in school lunch programs. An entire generation of Japanese children grew up eating bread at school. It stopped being foreign, it became familiar. But here's the key. Japanese bakers didn't just copy American bread. They transformed it, made it softer, sweeter, richer. They added milk and butter. They borrowed the water roux technique from Chinese steamed bun making and integrated it into their baking. The result was shokupan, a bread that looks like it could be American sandwich bread, but tastes and feels like something completely different. The timeline of shokupan. When you step back and look at the full timeline, it's a remarkable story. 1543. Portuguese traders introduced pão to Japan. 1874. A baker named Kumaraya creates anpan, the sweet bean bun, which is really the first bread that appeals to Japanese tastes. That principle of adapting Western technique to Japanese flavor is what eventually produces Shokupan. Then the 1940s bring American wheat relief, school lunch programs, and a generation that grows up on bread. And today, artisan Shokupan is a craft that people take as seriously as we take sourdough. Now let's talk about the secret weapon. If you baked cinnamon rolls with us last weekend, you already know this technique. You already made a Tangzhong. You cooked flour and milk together until it thickened into a paste, and that paste made your cinnamon rolls impossibly soft. The same technique powers Japanese milk bread. Yudane is the traditional Japanese method. You pour boiling water over flour in a 1-to-1 ratio, mix it into a paste, and let it rest overnight. The boiling water gelatinizes the starch instantly. The texture you get is what the Japanese call mochi mochi, slightly chewy. Tangzhong is the adaptation popularized by Taiwanese baker Yvonne Chen in 2004. You cook flour and liquid together in a saucepan, 1-to-5 ratio, heat it to 65 degrees Celsius, and it's ready in minutes. No overnight rest. The texture leans more fua, softer and lighter. We're using Tangzhong because it's faster and you already know how to make it from Cinnamon Roll Week. That's not an accident. That's how this academy works. Here's what's actually happening at a molecular level. Raw starch granules can only absorb so much water. But when you heat starch with liquid, those granules swell, burst open, and absorb significantly more moisture. That's gelatinization. When you pre-gelatinize the starch in your Tangzhong before it ever goes into the dough, you're locking extra moisture inside the starch structure from the very beginning. That moisture doesn't evaporate during baking. It stays trapped. And that's why your bread stays soft for 4 to 5 days without a single preservative. No dough conditioners, no chemicals. Just science you can do in a saucepan in 5 minutes. I want you to see the bigger picture of what you're building here. 3 weeks ago, we made focaccia. That taught you high hydration dough and sheet pan baking. Low stakes, big flavor. Last week, cinnamon rolls. That introduced you to enriched dough and Tangzhong. You learned the technique in a forgiving, fun context with a sweet payoff. This week, milk bread takes those same skills and adds precision shaping. You're applying Tangzhong in a different way. You're working with enriched dough at a higher level. You're learning the 3-piece method for pan bread. Each week builds on the last. That's not a recipe collection, that's a skill set. Here's your week at a glance. Tuesday, we cover enriched dough theory. The 5 things I wish someone had told me about working with butter, eggs, and sugar in bread dough. Wednesday, we get into the science of starch, why this bread stays soft, what retrogradation means, and why you should never refrigerate bread. Thursday is shaping day, the 3-piece method: divide, bench rest, flatten, fold, roll. It's the technique that gives Shokupan those signature peaks. Friday, we set up for success. Mise en place. Make your Tangzhong, measure everything out, review the timeline. Saturday is the main event, live bake-along. We bake together, post photos at every stage, help each other out. And Sunday, we reflect on what we learned and connect it all together. Tuesday and Thursday are your most important prep days before Saturday. Tuesday's enriched dough theory covers temperature control, the window pane test, and why your mixer speed matters more than you think. Thursday's shaping lesson walks you through every step of the 3-piece method. If you absorb those 2 lessons, Saturday's bake is going to feel smooth. Technique is the difference between a brick and a cloud. I'm not exaggerating. Friday night is your secret weapon. 15 minutes of prep, and Saturday morning is stress-free. Make the Tangzhong. It takes 5 minutes. Measure out all your ingredients. Review the timeline so you know what's coming and when. That's it. You walk into Saturday morning with everything ready to go. No scrambling, no surprises, just baking. I want to leave you with this. In Tokyo, people line up for hours at bakeries like Center the Bakery and Pelican just to buy a loaf of shokupan. Bakers post their baking schedules so customers know exactly when a fresh batch comes out. There's no "it's just white bread" attitude in Japan. It's taken seriously as a craft, and this week you're learning that craft, in your kitchen, with your hands, from the same techniques those bakers use. You're not building a recipe collection here. You're building a skill set. Now, both the yeasted and sourdough versions of this recipe live in the recipe pantry. One of the features we built into the pantry is a toggle that lets you switch between the two versions with one tap. You can also switch between metric and volumetric measurements depending on how you like to work. And throughout every recipe, key terms and techniques are highlighted. Tap on any of them and you'll get a full explanation, even short video tutorials, right there without leaving the page. I built the recipe pantry to help you have more success in your baking, not as an ad carrier, not something that bombards you with pop-ups. It's a tool designed to keep you focused on the bread. There's a button at the top of the page that looks like a little chef's hat. Click that and the recipe stays live on your screen, won't go dark on you, so you never lose your place mid-bake. You can check off each step as you go, so you always know exactly where you are. And there's a Bake With Me button that connects you with Krusty, our recipe concierge. He's got full working knowledge of every recipe in the pantry. Click his microphone and you can have a real two-way conversation with him. Ask about substitutions, timing questions, troubleshooting, whatever comes up. He'll walk you through it in real time. One of the newest features we've added is a scaling tool right above the ingredients. You can cut the recipe in half, double it, triple it, or enter a custom amount and the pantry recalculates everything for you. The recipe pantry is truly the future of baking and learning at home. We've got over 70 recipes in there now, and every single one has been tested and proven before we invite you to try it. Let's get into it. I'll see you next for Enriched Dough Theory. Let's get to work.